actually know the film and have seen the film, because in a way, you're the fans. You're the fans of this movie. So how many people have seen the film twice here tonight? It's like the vast majority, right? Okay, so this is Jon and I dedicate ourselves to creating a great experience in the movie theater, and I think you can see the kind of work that we go to with the visual effects and with working with the actors and so on to do that. But this is something we've never done, which is how do we make the next film even better for the fans? You gotta talk to them, find out what's on your minds.
So Jim, why don't we start out with raising the question? People said they've been here, seen the movie twice. We'll call on someone up front. Why did you go twice? Who wants to answer that question? Right here. Why did you go twice?
I just wanted to keep reliving the experience from the first time I watched the first movie. Because the first time I watched this one, I still wasn't satisfied.
He's saying he wanted to relive the experience right here.
Yeah, so I still wasn't satisfied from the first time I watched the movie, this one. So I felt like I didn't get enough from that first time, so I kept going and going and going, and the more I went, I got to understand it and make the experience better for me. And I've watched it 7 times.
So some people wanted to understand the film better. What's your thought?
For me, it's like to just sink it all in more, because I went at opening night to Chinese theater, and I was just so stunned at how amazing it was, and I just with more and more times. This is my 13th time seeing
13 times. Holy crap!
I cried, and it's just full circle from.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about who had an emotional reaction to the movie. Okay, a lot of people had an emotional reaction, and that's when I'm saying emotional, that's like separate from maybe the beauty or the kind of the visuals, but just you actually felt something for the characters. Okay, so somebody put up your hand if you want to just kind of tell us and the group where you had that emotional reaction. What worked for you?
For me, the biggest emotional reaction was when Jake's son bonded with. Sorry, I forget the.
Payakan, the Tulkun.
When they bonded for the first time, that was like, it was like seeing a boy and his dog, more like a boy and his psychic whale.
Yeah. So he's saying when Payakan, when Loak bonded with Payakan, was that something that really got you guys? Put up your hands if you thought that was an important scene, super important scene. Okay, great.
And other emotional moments for people in the film? Let's pick a female here. So we'll go right here.
I loved the story of Payakan and how everyone thought he was a killer, and then when you actually see the story, like he was killing for a reason that you wouldn't think, and it just like hit me right in my stomach when I like really heard that story, and I just thought it was so beautiful, really beautifully told.
This young lady right here.
I think the emotional response the first one that I had that was really touching me was seeing the bad guys fail the first time and that guy's arm gets snapped off.
Okay, so when Scoresby lost his arm, that was good? So was that like, but you weren't crying, that was satisfying, right? Yeah. Okay, was there like a cheer? I wasn't in here at that moment. It's like, yeah.
There's a woman over here.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I think that the most emotional scene for me was when Kate Winslet's character, Ronald, was experiencing devastation when she came across those whale-looking like sea creatures.
The Tulkun, yeah.
That were just dead in the ocean and everything, and just the devastation from all of that, losing that.
Do you think that was her, did everybody hear that? Okay. So do you think that was her performance that got you, or was it just the whole moment?
The emotional connection, the spiritual connection that they felt with the animals, and not just the fact that she was a mom that was pregnant, but the fact that she was caring for the animals in the ocean itself.
Right. Her spirit sister. Yes. Yeah. When Kate cried for her spirit sister. Yeah. Was this gentleman here?
For me, it was a little different. So for me, the first emotional.
You want want to tell everybody? You want to stand up? You mind?
Yeah, so for me it
I
was...
don't want to put people on the spot. It's
When-
important.
when Natiri and Jake were about to leave, and Natiri was saying that she couldn't leave because of that was their place.
Leave her home.
Yeah, and I mean, she gave such a great emotional performance. That's for me was when I had tears in my eyes. So it was way early in the movie.
Now it sounds by your accent like you weren't born here. So you had to leave a home at some point. What? You
Yes,
thought it was-
maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm from Soviet Union.
Right.
So yeah,
A lot of people on the move now.
yeah.
And
Maybe that's I didn't even think about that. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
It's funny when I wrote it, I didn't think of it as a refugee story per se, but it was pointed out to me, in the process while we were making the movie, and it really started to hit home. There's so many people all over the world that are on the move because of droughts and famines and wars and all kinds of things. Yeah, and maybe that's part of how it's I mean, here's an interesting side note, guys. In Ukraine, it's the highest grossing film in the history of Ukraine right now. That means that so even though they're being bombed, they're going to the movie theater because there's something in the movie that they're connected with, and it might have something to do with what you were talking about. Yeah, just this person right here. Hi. Okay, you're kind of quiet spoken. You want to just?
This is just something you might like to hear because it's a nice story. But after I first saw this, the first thing I did was I went down to Long Beach and went to one of the whale watching tours. And as I was listening to everyone on the boat was also there because they had just seen Avatar: The Way of Water because of Viacom. So it's making a difference.
Thanks for sharing that. That kind of makes it all worthwhile. If we can look, who doesn't like whales, right? No, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm talking about you.
Go ahead.
She recently went to the exhibit that you guys have at the Natural History Museum.
Yeah.
And she saw how you had gone all the way down to the bottom of the ocean.
Oh, right.
And she wanted to know what you brought down there to eat.
Okay. Well, let's save that toward the end. I'll answer that question. I want to focus more on the way of water. But yeah, I did.
I think one of the things, Jim,
7 miles. But thanks for the question.
We touched on a couple of different scenes, and I'm just curious as when people look back on the movie, are there sequences that stand out to them specifically that they wanted to return to in coming back to the movie?
Well, I want to still play out this emotional reaction because look, I think emotions are important in a movie. I mean, a movie can be beautiful, and we spend a lot of time and energy on trying to make the film beautiful. But I think people aren't going back and back.
Absolutely.
Because, so trying to understand that. So this gentleman right here.
For me, it's really the death of the firstborn.
The death of the firstborn.
Firstborn son, and then the way you end it with them connecting back to the first son. So to me, that as a father, I think the film is all about the family, and I've been trying to get my son to come and watch it. Finally, I succeeded. So this is my 3rd time watching it, and I finally brought him. What do you think? It's good?
That's good to say. No, but seriously, did you get something out of it that connected you with your dad? When he went back and forth at the end between being super young and then younger, like a teen, almost had a tear from a teenager. Wow, that's serious. Okay, let me ask you something. We got people of different ages here. So, how many people saw it through the eyes of the kids, and how many? So, who saw it through the eyes of the kids? Right. So you're not a kid anymore. You're seeing it, but you're remembering that part of your life.
Well, the young son.
You got a loud voice. You're good.
The young son, who is the outcast. We all have those times where we feel like we're just not popular. We're getting picked on. We're not special, and it kind of made that connection to me.
Yeah. Well, you guys could hear that. Yeah. Yeah. So look, I mean, I think. Put up your hand if you thought your teen years were the biggest challenge of your life so far. You know, it's like, so that's what we were trying to capture, right? All right, so put up your hand if you let's have a show of hand. I want to pick somebody else or somebody else that wants to talk about that, seeing it as through the eyes of the kids. All right, one of these guys right here. Just go ahead. Yeah. Don't fight. Arm wrestle.
Yeah, I relate on that final scene.
I've seen the film 5 times. Every single time that scene comes up, can't keep it in. The tears will roll.
You're talking about in the spirit world when Jake sees Natam.
Yeah, and I think from the kid's perspective, I actually had a conversation with my dad once. During the pandemic, I went back home for a little while, came back over here, and he was like, "Oh, it's like it feels empty that you're not in the house and messing around." And I was just like, "Man, like if I could do that forever, I would." This is never be done. And so in the moment there, it's like, you know, if Natam could do something forever, it would just be that. And that's also what Jake would do forever. But that connected me back to the first film where the bulldozers bulldoze the trees.
That's right.
And then I was like, that's what they're bulldozing. And that was the thing.
Bingo!
That's why.
Now you start to understand what this whole thing's about.
So I think
bad guys aren't just bulldozing trees; they're bulldozing memory.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing that hits.
Yeah. All right. Good one. Good one.
You don't mind?
Yeah. Go ahead. Just grab that mic.
Just to piggyback off of this gentleman's explanation about family and how it hit home. And by the way, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for all your dedication and conviction to making perfect movies. I mean, we're just so inspired. I mean, you've taken cinema to the next level, etc. But I see the movies, this particular one, through the eyes of my kids, because I have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old who I only see her when I see Took. And so the second I saw it originally, immediately when I realized this movie was about family, I was taken aback because it took me by surprise. I didn't realize that this movie was going to hit me that way because, you know, having a young family and seeing how they're interacting, you relate to it immediately. And it's funny because my friends who don't have kids my age, 40, 42, and they didn't react to this movie as well. The people with kids just loved it. And some of the other people without families didn't get it. And so
I figure everybody's got parents, so there's a way to look at this movie, you know, whether you have kids yet or maybe you don't even plan to have kids.
Right, yeah.
Let's talk to some young people and see somebody that looked at it through like the lens of your age. So stand up if you don't mind.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ricky. So I watched this movie with, I'm like 20. I watched this movie with my parents and my little sisters. They're 5 and 7 years old. So we have
are there any of them bratty like Took?
Not really, but I definitely see a resemblance to Took, yes. I'm sorry. So seeing the movie with them, you know, just having them like both on my side, like the older and then the younger, seeing Tam die like crushed me. Because
the actual death scene or the funeral scene later?
Both, but more the funeral and then remembering him through Mayo in the Spirit Tree. And then that's another thing that man over there was mentioning about the bulldozing and the memories and the spirits. I don't know if anyone else saw it, but Kiri, she can't connect to the Spirit Tree anymore underwater because of her seizures and stuff. So that's the last.
It's a big problem
time,
for her.
That's the only time she's ever going to be able to, remember him.
Well, maybe.
Yes, that's another thing I'm going to ask. How are we going to,
Okay, but what's nice about that is you're connecting to Kiri through her problem, right? So did it bother you guys that we didn't resolve some mysteries about Kiri, or does that make you interested? So,
more.
Yeah, there's part 3 and there's part 4. All right, so, and you guys can be totally honest with us. This is not just about telling us stuff we want to hear. It's about telling us the stuff we don't want to hear, or we want to hear it, but maybe it's stuff we need to work on more. Was anybody sort of bothered by the fact that there was unresolved stuff in the movie, that it was part 1? Put up your hand if that bothered you. Okay, so it's kind of not too big a problem, I would say. And put up your hand if you like this kind of intriguing idea that, I'm sorry, I was leading there. This idea, if you like the idea that there's more story yet to tell. Okay, so you guys are kind of accepting that this is part of a bigger story, okay? Because that was kind of a gamble for us. Okay, so John, you were going to ask about.
I was just going to ask if there were, specific scenes that resonated with people that they wanted to come back and see because of the specific scene.
Oh, sure. Okay. So yeah, right here.
Actually, I'm not a parent, but thank you.
I'm not a parent. I'm young, I guess. But the scene where
Compared to me,
yeah, shows the anger when she goes into revenge mode, like just full,
Mom, yeah.
full
Mother from hell.
Yes, that love, that passion, that like, she was probably in pain, she was probably injured, but she
didn't feel
it just showed so, like, every time I come back to see this movie, I look forward to that moment. And I think it also goes back to just your parents, no matter how many times you mess up, they will love you unconditionally. And when you go back to the end of the movie and the memories that they have of their kids, they're not bad memories. They're loving memories. And to me, it just reminded me of my parents' love. And sometimes, for me, my parents, they're immigrant parents, and it's hard for them to show us and tell us that they love us every day. And to
I'm
be
Canadian, so I know what you're talking about.
So to be able to see that in a movie, and for me at least, it was more like a breakthrough where it was like, you know what? Yeah, my parents do love me, even though they might not tell me every day or text me every day. But like, it was definitely a breakthrough for me personally. And also I enjoyed that sequence and going back to see Zoe Saldana just give a performance, honestly, a performance.
Zoe!
So internally making the movie, we called that sequence "Parents from Hell" because they picked the wrong people to mess with.
Other sequences for people? Gentleman in the back right there.
So Nadeem's final word that he didn't get out to his father, being a father, that resonated with me. And then the second son, the first time I saw it was with my son, with my wife, and just the whole, as a father who's tried to raise a child in one way, seeing Jake try to raise a child in one way, seeing him not get that closure with that final words from Nadeem and the relationship with Loak. I appreciate it here again, and I'm looking forward to seeing more. So.
Well, thanks. So let's talk about, it's not just individual characters, but relationships, right? Because we're interested in certain relationships. Like, we don't spend a lot of time on Neytiri and Kiri. We spend a lot of time on Jake and Loak, right? And we spend a lot of time on Loak and Payakan. We spend a lot of time on Neytiri and Jake. So character connections, Kiri and Jake. So talk about that. Who liked a character relationship there? All right.
I think the cool part of the entire. Oh,
by the way, I think Avatar, both are the greatest movies ever made. And
never would have guessed that.
There you go.
And got these from Shop Disney. And I know all 5 will be. It's a dream come true that you're making 5. Wow. And I think the coolest relationship of all is between Awa and Kiri. I know that it was not like a person, but I think that's definitely the most, and how Kiri's turned. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think that Payakan's a person. We just wrote him as a person, and I think ultimately we learn more about Awa as we go along. So that's a really you got that right. The relationship between Kiri and Awa is very important, and I like that you got that because we didn't want to hit it over the head, but I think there are a couple of moments where we definitely underlined it a couple of times, like when Jake talks to her and she says mighty, that. So this gentleman right here.
Yeah, piggybacking on top of that.
Piggybacking on top of that, I think that's one thing that in your films is
executed really well is portraying what a character lacks, and then another character comes along and you really feel it. It's not the sort of thing that needs to be ever explained. And so for Kiri, we know that she's searching for something. We know she feels different. And just like this gentleman said, it's not an overt character like, personified, but we feel it, that she's connecting with Kiri, and it's with AY, and it's actually tapping into something really deep that she was lacking. And that's what I picked up the first time I saw it, and it just becomes more and more apparent each time I see it.
Well, let's just go right to it then. How many? Put up your hand, and I'm gonna do some of the other characters again, and it's kind of hard maybe to decide, but put up your hand if Kiri was the character that spoke to you the strongest in this movie. That's quite a lot. I think that's quite interesting. Now, let's do Neytiri. Neytiri. So Neytiri's got a lot of fans. Now, how about Jake? Jake. A lot of guys, So Jake's our way to look into this movie as a guy. Are you a father?
Yes.
Yeah. See, right? Yeah. Okay. Father of daughters. That's even. So did the Jake Kiri relationship resonate for you?
I just like Jake's.
I just like the way you portrayed Jake now. He's grown so much since the first movie. And his relationship that he's seen with his family now, I see him going back to the relationship that he had with his brother in the first movie. And now how he's able to protect his family,
right,
and be there. And because it seems like he lost that in the first one because of the death of his brother.
Yeah, it's an interesting observation. Let me grab that back, Bob. Because it's like Jake's a fearless hero in the first film. He'd leap off his Ikran onto a Leonopteryx, and he can't do that anymore. He's got kids. And I just thought, let's just explore that, Okay, so this gentleman right here in the light shirt, yeah. Oh, hi. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, I wanted to say that, regarding the family, I'm only 24 years of age, but I really wanted to keep coming back and watch all of the family dynamics and how they all work together, because we're all on the same journey, we're all on the same life, right? We're all different ages and steps. I didn't even know if I wanted to have children or not, but watching this film, it makes you realize and pick out what you could possibly be doing better as a parent or better as a sister or a brother. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. And I thought that all the intricacies between their relationships was really relatable, and it helps you kind of grow and learn just watching their experiences and how they handle life.
Did you see your parents in a different light?
I have, when I hit, my teenage years, we all know we don't even have the answers. If I had a child right now, you looked at your parents and you're like, they have the answers, but they don't. They're learning as well.
They're just winging it.
Exactly. So I appreciate that.
I got 5 kids, trust me, we're just winging it. All right, thanks for that.
And I know this, yeah.
Hi, I have daddy issues and mommy issues, so you were gonna get me with this movie anyway, but I am obsessed with, this may not be what you're asking for, but the relationship between recombinant Quaritch and who he used to be.
Ooh.
Death of the Self.
I was going to get to Quaritch next, so you read my mind on that.
I'm obsessed with him. He is it's the perfect way to bring back a villain and do a clone storyline that is satisfying and not a cop-out. He's great. I'm so happy with it. I really hope that you gift us with some extended scenes, because I heard that a lot of stuff got cut.
Well, it's part of the writing process to just explore the characters, and then ultimately, anytime the movie gets over 3 hours, you got to start. You got to fire up the chainsaw. But there's a lot of thought.
9-hour cut.
Yeah. So all right. So put up your hands if you like Quaritch. People are liking Quaritch. Okay, that's good. That's good to know. And it's also a big relief because he's. Okay. All right. That's your background. All right. Good. Little cat whiskers on Quaritch. Yeah. So her comment's very interesting. The relationship between Quaritch and Quaritch, right? Who he is now versus who he was then. Is he the same guy? Is he not the same guy? How is he processing that? So that leads us to Spider. All right, so put up your hand if you like Spider. It doesn't have to be your favorite guy, but okay. So Spider's working for you generally. All right, that's good. Now, what did, just anybody, what did you like about Spider? Okay, I'm going to go with you.
I really like that Spider and Miles
I think there's a really cool dynamic between Miles and Spider. I thought Miles is kind of just like, you know, a villain in the first one, but now that he's come back as his enemy, or, you know, how he puts it, looks like his enemy. The relationship between him and his son, who he is reminded is not actually his son, I think is just a cool dynamic between them, and it's, I don't know, it's a cool, like, different angle to take onto that character that was just kind of a villain in the other movies.
Okay, how many people got really mad at Spider when he saved Quaritch? All right, now here's the critical question, and I'm going to ask somebody to elucidate on this. Was it good mad or bad mad? Bad mad, okay. Not good mad like I get why they did this, but bad mad like, what a dumbass. All right, so right here. No, I've done, you've already talked already. Let's do this young lady in the white shirt.
I'm curious to see him as he goes forward, because towards the end of the movie, you know, you see him looking at Nick Fury as more of a beast and less of a family member. You can see that separation between, am I a man or am I Tikkun?
Right.
Right, so I'm really curious to see which way he sways as his quote-unquote dad.
Yeah,
right.
Okay. So you're curious about what happens next with Spider and with Quaritch.
Right, and you start to see in his eyes where that relationship changes the second that Nick Fury takes a knife to him.
Well, and what happens to Neytiri and Spider? Yeah, did who thought that we went too far with Neytiri and the knife with Spider? You thought that was dramatic, that worked, that was good conflict? Okay. This gentleman back here.
You did it perfect. Whatever you did.
Okay. You just come along to all the Q&As from now on. No, honestly, we're not looking for praise. We're looking for what worked and what didn't work. So let's talk about what didn't work. Who's got a beef?
The movie was great.
Okay.
Don't
right.
cut anything.
All right, we're good. We're done. Thanks. Let's talk about something that troubled you. Maybe something. It could be something that troubled you the first time you saw it and then it got answered, or something that just still bothers you. You've seen it a couple times, still bothers you. Right here, the guy with the beard.
Yeah, one thing that bothered me was, you know, when Jake's son dies and you have the montage, right, and then he's holding Spider and he says, you know, I've lost a son and I'm replacing him with the son. Right. It felt a little sudden, right? You know, at the beginning.
Too quick.
Yeah, Spider
was not earned by the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Put up your hand if you think that he's onto something there. You felt that was too quick. Okay. All right. That's something to see. This is really super helpful. You guys are making the next movie better, right here tonight. Okay. All right. Anybody else have a beef? Something that bothered them? Right here.
Yeah. I don't know if it was a beef, but the way that the end that Quaritch was like just completely off.
I'm just interested in, you know, other villains than the military-industrial complex, maybe. And
you think that so if I'm not going to try to put words in your mouth here, but the generalized enemy of like this faceless military machine is not as interesting as like a personal thing?
No, I thought it was perfect in this one. Just knowing that there's more on the horizon, I would love to see
like a new villain,
intra-world villains, maybe. Yeah.
And intra-world, like somebody
like within
from
the world
Pandora.
Yeah.
You are going to be so happy. I see this goes both ways. By the way, you're all sworn to secrecy here. You run home and say, "Oh, we know what's going to happen next." Okay, right there.
In terms of Spider, so he bothered me a bit. One thing was that sometimes I wasn't really feeling throughout the whole film what side he is really on, and yeah, so that was.
You didn't know what side Spider was on.
Yeah,
All
like
right.
sometimes I didn't really feel it that, you know, if he's really with on his dad's side or the others. And also.
Let me run with that for a second. We'll
Okay.
go back and let you finish it. But so what I'm going to ask is, how many people thought what she said was a good thing that you didn't know what side he was on, and how many people thought it was a bad thing that you didn't know what side he was on? Okay, good. So I think we're kind of more on the side of like not knowing, being interesting. So what was the second part of your question?
And it like took me out of the story just for some reason. That situation when he tries to save his avatar father.
Right.
The thing is that he was just human, so it was very strange for me that he's dragging him out of the depths of the waters.
You think because he's so small relative to Quaritch,
Yeah,
it'd be too hard?
Yeah, I really felt that because
Does it help that Jack actually did that with a full-sized weighted model of Quaritch that was 10 feet tall? He really did it, so.
Yeah, I the first time I saw it, this movie, it just took me out of the story for just a tiny bit. So
let's
that's
talk
what
about
I
that
remember.
area. Let's talk about that area of the film. So, somebody just comment on when Kiri kind of got the glowing squid to go in and find her mother and sister. Who felt an emotional reaction in that scene? Okay, that's good, because that, to me, that was something that we were going for. What about the music? Obviously, we lost James Horner in a plane crash between the first film and the second film. His kind of sidekick and arranger orchestrator Simon Franklin did the score. What do we think about the score? Somebody just comment. This guy right here in the ball cap.
I think I was actually going to ask you about that later on. Oh, thank you. I actually was going to tell you about that later on. I actually thought it was great because, to be honest with you, I remember when I saw Titanic back in 1998, I didn't know who James Horner was. And the first thing I did when I came out of that movie, I was like, you know what, Dad, you got to get me the soundtrack. And I bought it, and even to this day, I still listen to it. And then when Avatar came out, and I saw he also composed it, I was amazed by the great work that he did. And I really like how you paid an homage to what he did in this
Right, so we used some of his themes.
Yes.
So just show of hands if you liked the score, if it was working for you emotionally. Okay, pretty good, pretty good. I'll
Tell Simon, it's my first call when I leave you.
Yeah, it was great.
I did like it. I did feel like the theme did kind of play over a little too much. Like just a little bit like there was the same common theme that I heard throughout the movie, like a lot, that I would have maybe liked a little.
You're talking about the new theme, because there's a kind of a new main theme.
Yeah, it's like the dun, 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 I don't know if that helps. But yeah, it's just.
All right, so we'll call you if we need another component. Okay. Ready? Go ahead.
This might be a little brutal. Not a story about the frame rate. I'm not a big fan of the variable frame rate.
All right, so let's talk about that.
I just want to say specifically, I don't like when it looks too video gamey. I like when it looks more cinematic.
So can you remember a specific scene that bothered you?
Usually like the train scene's a really good example. So when you cut back to Jake on his Banshee,
Right.
It looks great, it looks cinematic. But then when you like switch back to the action, it just looks like a video game to me.
Right. Okay. Now the thing is that standing here right now, I can't actually remember specifically which shots are 48 and which aren't. And I think what I think is happening is that some people are more sensitive to it than I am. So how many people like the way the underwater scenes looked? Okay. So here's an interesting factoid. Every single underwater shot in the movie is at 48 frames. Every single one. And that was just a blanket decision we made once we started seeing the stuff. Then we tried to use it to fix 3D problems in other parts of the movie above water. And I think we're trying to find out more about this because I think there are people that are bothered by it more than others. So speaking not about the underwater shots, because we've already said we like those, in the above water stuff, who noticed the difference between 48 and 24? I'm guessing maybe half the audience, right? Okay, so of the people who noticed, who were bothered by it and would have preferred it wasn't done that way? Okay, so there are people that are legitimately bothered by that. Yeah, so thank you for that, by the way. This is very helpful. because some people are having like a fairly strong negative reaction to it, and it seems like the vast majority don't really care that much, but our goal is to try to do it better next time. So if anybody wants to make a specific comment on this, are you on the 48 thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually saw the film in Dolby Cinema high frame rate first, and it bothered me so much it got in the way of whether I actually liked the movie or not. And so I went back and watched it 24 frame 2D, and I fucking loved the movie. Excuse my French. But I absolutely,
Not in every theater.
yeah, so I actually went out of my way to find a way to watch it without it, to see the differences. So I liked it better without the high frame rate.
Okay, well, all right, so that kind of leads to another thing. So how many people have seen the movie in 2D and 3D? All right, that's actually a lot. All right, so in that group, is there anybody that liked it better in 2D than 3D? That's significant, all right? That's okay. Don't, you're not insulting me, because I take a lot of, just so everybody knows, the pride of authorship that I take in the cinematography and the composition and the shot design and the camera movement and all that stuff, it doesn't change between 2D and 3D. It's 98% the same movie, you know? And I happen to know that some people either don't see 3D well, or they just don't like it, or they don't like the weight of the glasses, or they don't like putting the glasses on over their glasses, or whatever it is. And it's totally cool to see the movie in 2D. You know, our work, doing the effects, doing everything we do, the script doesn't change, the performances don't change. You know, so the 3D is there if you want it. You already had your pitch. Active shutter, passive shutter doesn't really make that much difference. You know, the 3D technology out there, how many people saw it in a theater that wasn't as bright as the theater you saw here tonight, the projection you saw here tonight? Okay. All right, so that's not as big a problem as we thought, right? Because literally 90% of the screens out there are half or less the brightness of what you saw tonight. And we always thought that was maybe, you know, kind of a problem, but it doesn't seem to be on people's minds. Right here?
You didn't mention 4D. I didn't see it in 4D, but my dad did with the, you know,
the 4D, they throw stuff at you and they shake your seat and all that. How many people saw it in 4D? You love the 4D? Okay, all right. I've never done it, so I don't know if it's any good or not. Yeah. It's a little bit external to my creative process. If people love it, I'm happy.
That's the one format exactly that is.
I know, I think next time we should probably get a little more actively involved in the 4D. Right here?
Hey, there were a couple things that bothered me. It's interesting because when I saw it in 2D, I didn't like the first fight scene. I felt like it kept going, but then when I saw it in 3D, I felt like...
Which fight scene?
In the beginning when they first come into the caves and they trap the kids.
You're talking about in the rainforest, the night green scene, where in the rainforest where they catch the kids?
Yeah.
Okay.
They first catch the kids.
Yeah, okay, all right.
But then when I saw it in 3D, I felt like I was more involved. And for some reason it felt like it kept going in 2D, but in 3D I was like, oh, that felt complete.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because we definitely slow the pace down a tiny bit for the 3D, so you have time to hang on shots a little bit longer. So that's an interesting observation.
Well, Jim, let's go over to this side. We haven't.
Yeah, I'm left-handed. Right here.
Hi. This may be a controversial opinion, but I really, really enjoyed the high frame rate. I'm not sure whether that's because I play a lot of video games and but I think that the thing that actually bothered me about those scenes was the variable difference in switching back and forth between 48 and 24.
So like pick a lane is what
Well,
you're saying.
I mean, I honestly, like, soap opera effect be damned, if the whole movie was in 120 frames, I would have loved it. So,
Okay, we're
I
not
think
quite
that,
there yet.
But
Plus there's a gigantic price tag hanging off that little concept.
Unfortunately. Well, it is Disney, so hopefully they can.
Ah, there you go. Sure. Disney, fucking, they can afford it.
Not really. I think that there are definitely people out there that do enjoy the higher frame rate. But the one other thing that kind of did bother me about the film was that we had just kind of gotten to the end of a lot of characters' development and their story arcs. So like Loak, who was finally stepping into the shoes of his older brother and becoming kind of the role model, or Quaritch kind of turning into a leaf, or Spider becoming kind of accepted into the Sully family. We had just gotten like a little taste of that, and that really wanted me leaving more, so it's kind of a bittersweet.
Thank you. Perfect. So that worked. No, but seriously, I think we did the question before, like who saw it as a bad thing versus a good thing that there's unresolved stuff. But if anybody else wants to pick up on that riff, that something that bothered them around things being unresolved, right? Is that what you're?
Yeah, exactly. Essentially, the movie was phenomenal as far as pace, and it kept you interesting, and really you just wanted to live in that world and watch them learn how to breathe, and watch and just be there as they learned how to learn to swim, etc. But as far as the story is concerned, it seemed like the plot points were all driven by rescuing the children.
So too many kid rescues.
Yeah, and I think you even made a
thought
joke.
there were too many kid rescues.
There was even a joke made about
doing any more kid rescues.
Took being tied up again, and she even commented about it. I don't mind the kid
know.
rescue, but it just felt.
All right, so who laughed when Took said, "I can't believe I'm tied up again"? All right, okay, so that's called trying to save your ass. So it's like, yeah. Does anybody else remember a funny moment that made them laugh, or that you remember the audience laughing? Right there. I know we did.
When Jake was talking to Tam, he was like, "What do the other guys look like?" And it was like worse.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about Natam. Did you feel that you got enough of him to drive the emotional ending? Put up your hand if you thought there was enough of Natam in the movie. Okay, and so presumably, put up your hand if you thought you wanted to know him better. Okay. All right. Well, he's dead. Right here.
I'm getting old, so I want to know more about.
You're not old, trust me.
I want to know more about the human aging being stopped.
Okay. So, did anybody feel that was like you're talking about the Amrita, the stuff from the Tulkun? Yeah. So you want to know about the human aging part. We're just trying to think of like what would really drive people, like what would really be worth something. We never tell you in the first movie what unobtainium is for. I know what it's for, but we never tell you what it's for. It's like, who saw Pulp Fiction? Okay, all right, everybody saw Pulp Fiction. All right, they open that briefcase and that glow comes out. They never tell you what's in the damn briefcase. But we figured we'd give it a purpose, right? So the human aging, but we don't say how. But obviously it would have to be something. These guys are smart enough on Earth to create avatars. So genetic engineering, they can do all kinds of amazing, biogenetic stuff in the future. So why can't they make Amrita? They should be able to synthesize it, right? Well, we got an explanation for that. Yeah, right here.
Yeah, I want to talk about one thing which bothered me, like in Avatar 1 and 2 both. We have shown Jack as a character who know what's going on, who know how to plan, who know what decision to make, and most of the time, right decision. But I think in the end, when he said the Spider is a son who is replacing the son who died.
Right.
But
Son for his son.
Yeah, son for his son. But we didn't conclude a Spider character clearly that one side he's saving his dad, who is against his so-called new dad.
His enemy.
Yeah, and then so that I feel like at this moment now we are not showing exactly what side he is, and then Jack has so far in both movies has been taken right decision. So now are we introducing a new concept where maybe he's no more perfect? He's going to take.
Okay, so does everybody knows what he's on about, right? Now, who thinks that's a bad thing versus a good thing? So we'll do bad first. You think it's a bad thing that we don't know quite where Spider's head is at? I think we kind of asked this, but let's clarify it. Put up your hand if you thought it was a bad thing we didn't know what Spider was on about at the end. Okay. And put up your hand if you thought it was a good thing that that's undecided. All right, so you're going to have to come back to find out. I will say Spider remains an important character. It was challenging for us to deal with that exact issue on this film. If you remember, in the cutting process, we had to get that balance. Now we're getting to see if we got it right.
I felt like Spider's arc was very unsurprising to me. It was very expected, almost. Like, okay, he's gonna, be part of this family, and then he's gonna turn on them toward the end a little bit and like save him. Then I kind of know what's gonna happen in the next movie. Of like, he'll grow up kind of, and he'll be pitted against Jake's son, maybe as the next next of kin.
Interesting fan theory. I hope everybody's taking notes so that we can have this conversation in a couple of years.
I feel like
you'll have to come back for the next one.
I feel like I know where it's going, but I know that you know that we know what's going on. So I
refuse to comment
so I'm looking forward to what you're gonna do to turn on expectations.
All right, now we're getting somewhere. You're saying you're looking forward to seeing what we're gonna do with that.
Yeah.
All right. So put up your hand if you feel like it's something to look forward to and figure out these character resolutions. All right, great. So thank you. That's good. It kind of validates our approach.
Did we talk about Loak enough?
Let's talk about Loak. Who's got a comment about Loak? Pro or con? Let's go back here with the blue mask, please. Yeah, maybe so we can hear you better.
Thanks. What kept me coming back to this movie a couple of times is Loak's introduction to Payakan. And when Payakan is revealed to be a sentient, emotional, real character and says, it's too painful, and they bond over shared trauma. I was just very unexpected to me, and really made me fall in love with the movie.
Thank you.
As someone who's experienced trauma and can relate to a film in a deeper way, it just blew my mind.
A lot of people have, and I think a lot of people, including in my family and my wife's family, and seeing people having to process that, and it just felt kind of important to us to have, Payakan be a fully rounded character, kind of almost from a literary standpoint, with a past and with hard decisions to make. Was it clear to everybody when Payakan kind of trashes the ocean bottom that he's frustrated and furious, and there was, so you got that he was like struggling with that decision. How many people felt a sense of uplift when Payakan leaped up and smashed the ship? Okay, we're liking that moment. Okay. Now, here's a critical question. Did that get old, or was it still good by the time he smashed the whaler's boat? We're still good. We're still good. Okay, so there's no such thing as too much Payakan, is what I'm getting here. Okay, good.
Anything more on Loak?
Yeah.
I mean, I love the relationship with Loak and Jake.
I was like kind of the black sheep growing up, and I really resemble.
You
I
were
see
the outcast in your family.
and I see it through his eyes. Like even though I'm 40 years old, I see it through his eyes, and the fact that he earned that acknowledgement by the end of the movie is the reason why I came back to see it multiple times.
Great. So when Jake says, "I see you,"
yeah, that lands really, really hard.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I felt like that myself. So I think the father-son thing, was an important thing for us making the film. So thanks for that. Right here.
I feel like a lot of what the work represents is just a frustration.
Here, take this one.
He represents a lot of frustration that people hold with being brought up with certain traditions, with certain ways of living life that don't exactly work now with some of the things that are, some of the threats that go on day-to-day life. Like
Interesting.
Back when Loak was around, when all this happened, when these rules of life were set in place, they didn't have these aliens, which is humans, coming around, killing people off with that machinery. And I feel like there's a lot of people, me personally, I dealt with a lot of stuff growing up where it's like, oh well, my parents are not from here, they weren't from that land. I mean, they weren't from this area. There's a lot of challenges I faced that they were not ready to.
Fitting in?
Yeah, fitting in, so I was.
And your dad being judgmental of the things you were doing to fit in or whatever?
Yeah, and it also, I feel like it's a strong theme with the movie that you'll see with Jake's youngest son and also Spider. Spider's trying his best to just try to do the right thing, but then he's looking at, when he sees that video of his father getting killed through you know, his camera, literally his father's perspective. He's like, okay, well, there's some good in him. And then at the end, he even lets everything that his dad's going for, he lets it go, because I feel that's opening up a lot of humanity too. It's a metric too for humanity within Quadridge.
Right.
Because at first you're like, okay, there's this evil attacking Jake and his family, this evil that won't stop, you know, this guy, he killed this guy, but he's back, he's like a Terminator. Now, but then it's like, no, this guy.
I peaked early.
I had to, no, but I'm almost done, yeah. So I feel like when you add this dynamic of him having had a son, it really adds a layer to Quadridge that you didn't see in the first movie. He's not just this what do you call it? This hardened military guy.
Yeah, he's not one-dimensional.
He's not one-dimensional.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, so the way I work when I'm writing is I just do stream of consciousness notes, you know, and I just write down anything that pops into my head, and then I argue with myself. So I wrote down, you know, I was talking about this kid, and, you know, he doesn't fit in, and he was just going to be kind of a little secondary character. And then I wrote, well, what if the kid is Quaritch's son? And I went, nah, nobody will believe that. I literally talked myself out of it. And then like 2 pages later in the notes, it's like, no, wait a minute, this is a good idea. So, because in my mind, Spider connects the two dads together, binds them to each other, you know, so that, because revenge just gets boring after a while. So anyway, that's kind of the thinking around Spider. Does anybody have anything else they want to say about Quaritch or Spider or Loak, the father-son thing?
Jim, right here.
Yeah, go ahead.
For my, like, the relationship, I really saw the movie through the Tam's eyes, because I'm a big sister and I have a little brother and an older brother. My dad was an officer, so he really treated, like, our family similar to how Jake was, so I related to him.
Very disciplined.
Yeah, and it really, Loak was probably the most frustrating character for me. Like, he really, really pissed me off, like, to no end.
Is that a good pissed off or a bad pissed off? Okay, bad pissed off.
Okay. Just because, like, I know, because my little brother's, what, 13, 14, so he's at the age where he doesn't want to listen, and so I'm always like, are you watching your brother? Are you looking for your brother? What's your brother doing? What's this? I'm like, I don't care. But it was.
So you're channeling the Tam.
Yes.
And Loak is the fuck up, who's actually getting people killed.
He wasn't the fuck. Well, actually,
all right.
But not for my little brother. But I just wanted to say, like, I don't know.
I didn't say your little brother.
I didn't know if it was the intended effect, but like as the older sister looking through Natam's eyes.
That's interesting.
Really made me mad.
Okay, so what I'm picking up here is that different people, because of their family experiences, are seeing the movie through slightly different lenses, which is really interesting. Does anybody have? Well, I mean, you know, we're not in a super hurry, so unless you guys need to go, yeah. Okay, so let's. Does anybody have a lens that they saw the film through based on their life experience that's a little bit different than what we've been talking about so far? Okay, right here, we haven't heard from you.
I work at an elementary school, so I work with a lot of students, kind of helping learn how to manage their emotions, deal with consequences of their actions, since they're just acting impulsively often. And with Loak, especially, kind of what was mentioned before, with him kind of making repeated mistakes, I kind of really connected with that, and the students I work with, seeing them kind of struggling to learn from from these mistakes. So I'm excited to see how that with where he's at the end of the movie, how that progresses.
Interesting. Is that something you could relate to personally from when you were younger?
Yeah, and even currently.
Tell me about it. Trust me, it never goes away. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just
Here, tell everybody.
Oh yeah. First off, I just want to thank you guys for creating such amazing stories. They do get me to leave the theater with an emotional response, and, you know, thinking about my life and what I could do better. The first movie for me was about self-discovery through Jake Sully, and then after mastering self-discovery, he found love.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second story was even more powerful for me, and it left me contemplating my own life. I'm 31 right now, and what I realized was the importance of family and the man's purpose in that family alongside his wife, his lover. And yeah, it just made me realize like what that looks like, and you know, there's a lot of comments where they say, Sully, stick together. And that really hit home for me. And also the other part about how they were changing lands, it kind of made me relate to a lot of the countries and what they're going through with political asylum and going to a land they don't know. And I felt that because these are avatars, they don't have a skin color, they don't have a race, you know, everybody can kind of relate to them.
Right.
So I definitely did.
Well, those are great comments. I really appreciate that. Did anybody look at it through a racial lens, in that the Metcaina were slightly different than the Forest Navi? Did anybody see it that way? Just you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think being an outsider was an ongoing theme through the whole thing, whether you're a spider or whoever it is, and then the whole you getting welcomed in to being accepted. I think everyone's dealing with it in some form or another, political, global scale.
So acceptance.
Acceptance, yeah.
So how many people saw the movie through the lens of being accepted? It's a lot. Yeah, well, that's good, because I think that's part of it is about like, who am I and what do I need to do to earn my place, whether it's in society, in a culture, in a family, you know.
Sure.
So, yeah, thanks for that comment. That's great. Does anybody else have something? I don't think we've heard from you yet. Go ahead.
So,
Here. Thanks, everybody. This is great, by the way. I'm loving this. I mean, I could do this all night, but we're not.
Well, first, I wanted to say it's an honor to be here, and thank you for doing this. I actually seen like this theme of like having a change in heart. So I was just wondering, like, since that mind transfer thing of Baldrige, it's not totally 100%, because you see like a internal struggle within the self. Maybe he'll find like a common bond with Jake Sully and end up, I don't know, joining forces like against another threat.
Fan theory. Let's keep track of this, folks. Let's keep track of it. We're going to regroup. I want everybody back, by the way. 2 years. Okay. This gentleman right here.
So I'm very interested in anthropology. So when the movie starts, when you talk about the beads, and later on we have this shot where Neytiri picks up the bow that is now broken.
Right.
That's really interesting to me. Also the whole point of, if I can maybe go back to the spider detail a little bit. What I like about Spider is what he can't do. So he can't connect to Iowa. Everybody else can.
He's the ultimate outsider, right?
And when he saved his, not his real father, but his surrogate type father, it's almost like his last possible link to actually connect to the world of Pandora. And going back to the scene that's the most emotional for me, it's when we can see what actually Iowa can do for Jake, to see his kid again. Mm-hmm. Because in the first one, when he connects to Iowa, he only hears voices.
Right.
So I think that that's kind of the approach that I'm kind of seeing it. And the reason why I came to see the movie again, because it's those like little touches that I kind of like are really fascinating about the movie, that are kind of want to see that grow, especially even the motif of the eclipse.
Yeah.
Because the eclipse is a very important motif that we see happen 3 times throughout the film, and it's only when we see the sun come out the other side when we see Quaritch ask Spider to come join with him.
Yeah, interesting.
So I think like those details, growing them, would be great. And also another small thing.
I'm glad you picked up on these motifs, because these are things that we're continuing with. Spoilers, but
also a small thing.
The fabric of the upcoming films will feel like a natural extension of this, and there'll be some swerves you don't see coming. So, which I think is a good balance. Okay, so right here.
Just back on the maybe like missing elements from the movie.
Sure.
When at the end battle, when the Metcaina.
Where'd they go?
Where'd they go?
Where'd they go?
Their kids are also stranded on the ship, and yet it just becomes a Jake story, kind of rescuing them.
Right.
And yet it felt like it would have been more emotional seeing all the parents bond together to.
We had that. We shot
rescue.
it, and we just decided it was a bit distracting to the core family. There are people that are bothered by it, and people that don't even notice it. So it's just one of those things. You never get a perfect score on a movie. And you're certainly never going to get a perfect score from 100% of people, right? So look, that's just a little window into the creative process. We had that where the other parents were there and we account for them. And we just felt that we needed to narrow the spotlight. And maybe it was not such a great decision, but that's the decision we made in the moment. And
it was emotionally resonant. It just felt like that we introduced these new parents and then we don't get to see them actually.
But you know, just to show you how fragile this whole filmmaking thing is. So the scene at the end where Jake clasps Tonowari's hand and, you know, realizes he's now one of the sea people, that he has been accepted. Did that resonate for people? Put your hand up if that resonated for you. Okay, there was a cut, probably more than half. There was a cut of the film that wasn't in. Because we just felt, yeah, it kind of went on a little long at the end, and we took it out, and then it just bumped for me every time I watched the film. We stuck it back in. So it's that decision-making process. And then there was somebody over here that was talking about, you know, cut scenes. I want to see the stuff, you know. This is the dilemma, right? You know, I mean, when you're creating a world, the world takes on its own life. Anyway, just letting you into the process a bit.
Hi. Okay.
Okay, here we go. This is gonna hurt. This is gonna sting. I can tell.
Do you want to stand for a second? I need to stand because I have bad knees. I'm only 26. But anyway, one of the things that really concerned me was on the audio as well as the subtitles when it comes to the sign language of the new tribe when they introduced the sign language of their own.
You're talking about the sign language?
Yes.
Right.
I go to Pierce College, and my major is American Sign Language.
Oh, ESL, yeah.
So, and this took a really hit to me when they were using sign language, but when you were programming the subtitles, they were only there for a brief second where it was like you couldn't see what.
Too quick. Subtitles too quick.
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll keep that in mind. I got an interesting story about underwater sign language, if you want to hear it.
But also, and throughout the whole movie, I felt like you were having too much analysis over the music in a sense that the music wasn't portraying the whole scene between different areas.
Okay, so let me try to clarify what you were saying, that the music was competing too much with the dialogue?
No,
Go ahead.
in a sense, yes. Where it was more of the dialogue of the animals was over conversating over the music, and you barely could hear the music throughout.
Oh, you wanted more music. You wanted more power in the music.
Yes.
Well, this is another one of those decision spaces that directors live in, you know, the composers live in. You know, when's the music too overpowering? When's it not enough? And I can guarantee you never get it right for everybody. You can only get it right for yourself. I want to tell you the underwater sign language story, okay? So I'm at it was a thing that was hosted by NASA. I was at an underwater habitat, and we stayed overnight in an underwater habitat, and we were swimming around doing some tasks, you know, and things like that, just sort of seeing what it'd be like to live underwater. All of a sudden, a bunch of people jump in the water, and it's a bunch of teenagers, and they clearly have literally just learned to dive like that morning. They had no idea what they were doing. They were knocking each other's masks off with their fins and crashing into each other and all that. They all came down the bottom. It turned out it was a tour, right, that NASA was hosting. It was like 15 kids. And they were a mess. They were from a deaf school. They dropped down to the bottom. They got comfortable and they started talking. They started talking. They were talking, and I'm looking at them going, son of a bitch, I've been a scuba diver. I've spent 2,000 hours underwater, and I can't do that. Because they were explaining what they were feeling to each other while they were right there on the dive, and I went, that's going in the movie.
Speaking of dives, because I think we might be getting past her bedtime, we promised an answer to this young lady over here. What did you eat when you were at the bottom of the ocean?
All right, so I'm in a sub. The inside diameter of the sphere is 42 inches, right? And it's all full of gear and everything, and there's not even room for a cup holder. And I took one protein bar. And I promised myself that I would eat it on the way back up.
And Jim, what position did you need to sit in that sub?
It's super uncomfortable because it's a very tiny sphere. Because the bigger the sphere, the bigger the sub, and then you gotta. Anyway, it's a long story. It's an engineering story, but yeah, I had to think about that because there wasn't much room. So it's not like I took a bunch of chicken sandwiches or something.
So this might be a good moment to thank everybody for coming. Thank everybody for being a fan of Avatar. And we thank you for being fans and coming out and seeing the movie in theaters. Thank you all very much for coming tonight.
I just want to assure you guys that you have made a measurable improvement to Avatar 3 and beyond with your effort here tonight. So, thank you. Thanks, everybody.